Her arrival has cast a very long shadow.
She's barely looked at you this evening, has she?
May I warn you of something? My brother can feel cursed, that love is doomed for him.
I don't like the fabric.
Maybe one day you'll change your taste.
Maybe I like my own taste.
Just enough to get you into trouble.
Perhaps I'm looking for trouble.
Stop! There is an air of quiet death in this house.
You're not cursed, you're loved by me. Stop playing this game.
What game? What precisely is the nature of my game?
All your rules and your clothes and all this money and everything is a game.
This was an ambush.
Stop.
Are you sent here to ruin my evening and possibly my entire life?
Stop it! Whatever you do it carefully.
David, I haven't recorded a podcast in over 7 months.
God, what's your life like these days?
I know well. I'll tell you another. Yeah. I'll tell you some other time. David, we have. Well, David, do you want to hear my fun, exciting plot twist?
Yes, absolutely.
We have 2 left to record, but this is actually our penultimate Paul Thomas Anderson because I got the orders wrong.
This was the final.
No, this isn't the final. Licorice Pizza is the final, but we've skipped Inherent Vice. So Inherent Vice, which we're doing Wednesday, actually came out before Phantom Thread. I'm sure you'll forgive me.
Yeah, I'm somehow managing to get over it even now.
David, I just watched Phantom. Well, what a stupid thing for me to say. I just watched Phantom Thread.
No.
And loved it as much today as I have for the many years since it came out in 2017. In my films of the decade of the 2010s, David, I ranked 45 years, Birdman, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, The Master at 4, Marriage Story at 5, Phantom Thread at 6. You've just opened this Zoom call and gone straight in.
I did not say it was bad. I said it was less. I didn't like it as much as I've liked other things by Paul Thomas Anderson so far. And I've got my own reasons. I think it's definitely one of his most indulgent.
Okay.
With some of the long shots. I mean, good God, there's moments where I started skipping through the movie. You know, on YouTube, you can get it to skip ahead by about like 5 to 10 seconds. It was about halfway through the movie. I would start skipping through some of the reaction shots because I realized I can skip and the camera frame has not moved in about 20 seconds.
David, this is the problem because I think I could watch close-ups of Leslie Manville scowling for...
Well, that's the thing. The close-ups are brilliant, and I did go back and watch every single one of the ones that I skipped through because I wanted to see the emotion and all. But sometimes I did think, good God, this has been about a minute-long shot of this doorway,
So what, beyond... Let's be personal. We both have ADHD tendencies. We both have, like, what makes this, for you, more indulgent than Magnolia, which many people refer to as probably the most indulgent film of its time.
I mean, to be fair, Magnolia was quite indulgent. But I suppose for me in the end, oh, well, there it goes again. For me in the end, again, I found myself not caring about what was going to happen to either one of these characters. Because part of me just felt, well, they're both just so fucking miserable no matter what happens.
Yeah.
Either they're going to end up together or split up. But I found myself not necessarily caring or being invested in either way. But was still drawn in and stuck around because of the brilliant performances and because I found the characters themselves to be quite compelling. So, that speaks for itself.
Did you not find it very, very, very funny
Tom, I swear to God, you must have just been picturing yourself to be Mr. Woodcock this entire last eight
Right.
months.
Okay. So I
It's too
watched.
much noise.
Yeah, I watched this on a joint call with the lady who's in my life at current, and it was, I would dare say, an obscene amount of times that she said, "He's just like you. You say that to me. This is exactly how you are."
You're not supposed to aspire to be these tortured
I don't.
creatives that are terrible to everyone in their lives.
I don't. I don't aspire to be them. It's just when a Daniel Plainview says, "I hate people," I, or or when a Reynolds Woodcock moans about something very, very particular, and and then it throws him off for a whole day. Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah. It was
Mm.
at several points in this movie I had to chuckle to myself. I really did. It's funny, I my wrote at the beginning, I when he was giving all the massive food order at the cafe, I
Do you
wrote
have any Welsh rabbit with the poached egg and some bacon? Lapsang. Do you have lapsang? I'll have a pot of
I
lapsang, please.
I wrote Mr. Gray will see you now kind of
Oh.
vibes. And by the end of the movie, I wrote surprise twist, Mrs. Gray will see you now? Question mark.
David, it's very curious that you bring up Anastasia, isn't it? Anastasia Steele and Edward E. Grey, because was it Edward Grey? Was he called Edward? Let's find out. But because my lady friend on the Zoom call said, this is reminding me of 50 Shades of Grey. 50 Shades. Oh, come on, what's his name?
It's a soft core porn version of 50 Shades of Grey, you know. Um it's all
Christian.
implied.
How did we forget that? Christian Grey.
Oh yeah. How did you forget that?
Because
Is what
she said, because when it first started, and I was kind of giving the game away, because obviously I've seen this lots and know the arc of the film and know that it's going to end the way it does. And so she was kind of like, so when we started, she was like, this is reminding me of 50 Shades of Grey, in that it's like she's not into it, but he's making her into it, and it's a really weird anti-feminist masquerading as sex power. What's sex power? Not sex power. What's the phrase I'm forgetting?
I
Sex positive. Sex positive.
oh,
Sex power.
sex power. Well done, Tom.
Thank you. And then I was like, I was getting annoyed because I know full well where the arc's going to go. And so I'm looking for those little details, when in actuality, I'm being a bad movie watcher and forgetting the first time I ever watched this, where I was probably just the same, thinking, oh, this is a little bit two-dimensional for Paul Thomas Anderson. This is a little bit of a cliche. Like, I've wrote down a few things, just like our old segment, what David said. I noted down a few things that the lady friend said, including, oh, the clumsy waitress, I wonder who he's going to fall in love with. And also when he did her lips and the makeup, and she went, oh, don't do that, why are you doing that, that's so, ooh, don't do that.
I wrote man who requires order falls in love with woman who brings chaos into his life. The end.
David, I once again feel that is a veiled comment to myself. David, if you have, like, this past month, I've cancelled a couple of podcasts, I've rearranged the schedule,
Dear God, Tom.
I know,
what's going
David.
on?
Well, we know what's going on. I've got an album. I've got an album in my life. Hopefully, this isn't going to be one of those situations where I recorded 2 different company episodes, one when I was with somebody, and then one 4 months later.
We'll get to licorice pizza. Well,
I've now fallen in love with my underage friend. Oh God, I love licorice pizza. Let's talk about Phantom Thread. Budget 35 million, box office 47.8 million, a minor independent hit. So I'm gonna this. So it's dedicated to Jonathan Demme, who died the day that the shooting finished. And Jonathan Demme, of course, directed Silence of the Lambs, Philadelphia, Something Wild, Something Wild, not Some Things Wild. And the film is dedicated to him. And I find it rather curious that, I mean, obviously they didn't know that he was going to die, but this is one of the more removed from the Demme style that Paul Thomas Anderson adopted so much in those early films with Boogie Nights and Magnolia. I mean, the famous comment he made during Boogie Nights was, I watched Silence of the Lambs and watching those close-ups, I realized, oh, now I understand how I can do the close-ups that I want in Boogie Nights. However, this film does have a lot of those eye close-ups, like the Lecter.
Yes.
Hannibal Lecter is not unlike Leslie Manville in this movie when it comes to her just staring straight into the camera. Do you want me to make you laugh, David?
Yes, absolutely.
So the script came about from two things. So it was written more or less in collaboration with Daniel Day-Lewis, and Paul Thomas Anderson has said that he should probably have some sort of co-writing credit. They would pass ideas around more or less since There Will Be Blood. The name Reynolds Woodcock started as a joke.
I was gonna say, what a fucking last name for this movie.
It started as a joke. It's a bit like I wrote a play, and one of the characters was called Lorna Hyman, and there's no jokes. Nobody ever comments on it. And the person who read it was like, I just read 120 pages, Tom, and you didn't make one Hyman joke. That is the most restrained. Because beyond the pure phallus of it, and beyond the pure male, energy of this domineering man in his world. Say it again.
At the end of the day, it's just a bird.
Mm. As we later learn, Reynolds Jeremiah.
RJC.
RJC. What would RJC do? However, David, the idea for the film came about from still one of my favorite things. Came about because I've got it here. Yeah. Because one day he was awfully sick in bed. And his wife, Maya Rudolph, who you'll know from SNL, and she's the one getting married in Bridesmaids, was tending to him and gave him a look that made him realize that she had not looked at him with such tenderness and love in a very long time.
Oh my God, go to therapy.
No, but come on. When you're in it, let's talk. Obviously, this is the ending of the film. But I was really ill on this past months of my job, and my lady friend did aid me, and there is something about it. I'm not saying it turned me on like they do in this psychosexual dynamic, but there is something about just that absolute. You are feeling complete. I mean, it was food sickness for me.
It's nice. It's nice when people show you unconditional care and support.
Yeah,
I agree.
And it's maximized by. Like, it was the first time I've ever had real food sickness. And I don't want to be crude, but it was exactly like Reynolds. It was profuse sweating. It was both ends. It was absolutely the worst experience of my life. I fainted.
So what you're saying, Tom, is if you're ever experiencing writer's block, I need to feed you some poison mushrooms, dote upon you for about a month, and then send you back out into the world.
Yeah, and then I'll prepare myself. I want you on your back, helpless, tender.
Open.
Open. Oh, what a perfect film. The amount of times I was watching it.
You would absolutely be the one to say that. Good God. I wrote during the date at the very fancy restaurant that they both go to, when he wipes her lipstick off and gets her
yes.
I wrote the smoothest neg I've ever seen.
Yeah, the smoothest neg. And then the immediate, oh yes, no, I loved my mother. I have a lock of her hair in my jacket right now.
Yeah, mommy trauma was definitely something I wrote quite early.
Is it mummy trauma or is it daddy trauma? Daddy's long gone.
I think it's it's a combination. He never had a father, became attached to
Yeah.
his mother, that became the only, the person in his life, and she got deified, and now he's into ladies that take care of him.
Well, oh,
What
that is
one of
true.
the first things I wrote was this man lives to have beautiful women doting on him, because
Yeah.
that whole like opening sort of scene, or not even necessarily doting on him, but just paying him their attention and respect
Mm.
and reverence, essentially, it was seemed to be a thing for him. It was
It's
happening.
it's that great thing. Great thing.
Careful what you say next, Tom. It's a great thing when you have slaves.
Yeah,
Jesus.
no, it's slaves who actually admire you and like you as well. Not just,
Yeah.
they're there to help you, but they also appreciate and believe in your genius, which he is very thankful, that is his situation, especially with Cyril, his doting sister for his entire life, but that's the great thing, is that somebody, I once won an argument in the saddest way the other day, because I was talking to, I did, it was with Jazz and Leanne and Eve, and it was like the saddest winning of an argument ever, because they were like, no, sorry, it was with Ava, my other friend, previous and future guest, Ava Robinson, and she was like, no, you like passive women, Tom, you don't like, and I said, well, if I like passive women, then why has every woman I've ever been left me to have to go about,
Boom! Drops
yeah,
mic, walks out
yeah,
of the club.
yeah,
Hands fall down
to
around his ankles.
yeah, to go out and have careers and have more freedom. So it's lovely, really nice. It was, and then it was only afterwards. It was my two modes. It was like being sad and depressive, and also winning arguments, and they came together beautifully. Uh,
We've never climaxed again like that.
yeah. Um. Okay. So, anything else in the general, David, about why you disliked, not disliked, but why you liked this less?
Yeah, I think it was ultimately that I found myself about halfway through the movie, although I was still like very much drawn in by the characters at times. I started to find myself kind of getting sidetracked or my mind wandering off while I was watching, which hadn't really happened with other Paul
Yeah.
Thomas Anderson movies. And I sort of realized it was because the main like plot point for me was like, are these two going to end up happy together and like
Mm.
married? Or is she going to leave him? And
Which,
or is he
yeah,
going to send her away? And ultimately, I've realized like I don't really care either way how it ends up. I think they're both just going
yeah.
to be miserable.
Well, I mean, obviously everything is so much grander than how it begins. But he after making Boogie Nights, he he set out to make a small film,
Yeah.
and then it kept growing and growing and growing and became Magnolia. And
Yes.
Punch Drunk Love, he set out to make a small film, and in many
Right.
ways, he achieved it. Quite very compact, very small, very personal.
Yes.
There'll Be Blood depends how you weigh it up, but it's a singular character study. However, it is this grand epic
Epic
about
still.
faith, consumerism, everything. Same with the, and I think it gets to a certain stage where like everything can be pared down a little bit. Like Boogie Nights, yeah, you can pare it down and say it's about family. Magnolia, you can pare it down and say it's about father daughter relationships, father son relationships, fractured relationships with children and parents. Punch Drunk Love, again, two lost people find each other. There'll Be Blood is how much are you willing to sacrifice to become the quote unquote greatest person alive. The Master, again, if a lost
Yeah.
person finding family.
Yes.
And then here, he wrote on his journal, man, woman, and then his first little note was sister, question mark.
Right. And that's all he wanted was to keep it that small.
I think it also not hinders for me, but has a stumbling block of it being in that Vertigo mold, which he is noted as an influence on this film, in that it has a weird structure. Like, it finishes around the 90-minute mark, and then there's another 50 minutes, which basically is a repeat.
Right.
Like, when I was watching it with this woman who's never seen it before, and she didn't have a look at the time, and she didn't know how long it was going to be, and she thought there was going to be 5 minutes. We had a wee break around the time of him waking up from the first poisoning, and she thought that the marriage proposal was going to be a really abrupt cut to black ending. And then she was like, how long's left? And I said, 50 minutes.
Yeah. But I would say those 50 minutes aren't necessarily wasted. And for all, my saying that I didn't necessarily care how their relationship turned out, I did still find the story compelling enough that I wanted to watch those next 50 minutes,
It sets up, it becomes a pattern structure. And we know from how it ends that the rest of their lives is going to be
that pattern.
That final 50 minutes over and over again, which is this beautiful ending. Let's talk about the Oscars.
Romantic question mark?
Shape of Water wins picture and director. Do you remember The Shape of Water, David? Did you watch The Shape of Water?
I did not watch The Shape of Water, I'm afraid.
Great. Best picture crop of nominees. Shape of Water, Call Me By Your Name, Dunkirk, Get Out, Lady Bird, Phantom Thread, and Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
What a year, jeez.
Plus Darkest Hour and The Post.
I remember The Post, not Darkest Hour.
Darkest Hour was Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill.
Yes.
Yeah, so he wins.
Good old Gary.
He wins, which should have been Daniel Day-Lewis.
Quite frankly, while watching this, I was really impressed by the way that Daniel Day-Lewis was able to play two incredibly obsessive, intense, commanding characters, in There Will Be Blood and in this, but yet two completely different people. And two completely different performances. Same characteristics, but performed in such different ways, and I just found it so impressive that at no point did I think I was watching him do something he had already done in There Will Be Blood.
It becomes a little bit, we take it for granted. It's like Steven Soderbergh. Steven Soderbergh pumps out like a movie, 2 movies sometimes a year, and we're always like, oh yeah, these are pretty good. And then you watch them again 5 years later, and they're like, oh no, this was a great film this year, and we take it for granted. We don't necessarily with Daniel Day-Lewis. Also, this is the thing to talk about. He's allegedly retired. This was the last.
Yeah, this was his last film. Yeah,
and who knows? That might be true. It looks that way. Anyway.
But I mean, I could see why he would want to go out on this one because it was a character that he had such a hand in crafting.
If only he was proud of the name. Vicky Krieps was not nominated for Best Actress. Best Supporting Actress. How do you feel about this race? So Leslie Manville loses. She's my winner.
Yes.
Spoiler alert. But she does lose to a good winner with Alison Janney and I, Tonya, who was obviously excellent.
In what?
I, Tonya.
Really? I mean, I, Tonya was good, but I felt like Leslie Manville's performance as Cyril in this was kind of fucking brilliant.
It was insanely good. David, I went to the theatre last Saturday, as you know.
Oh.
And 4 rows in front of me was Leslie Manville.
Leslie Manville! Was she staring intensely at something?
She looked great. She looked marvelous. She was dressed up for the town with her Saturday friend. She looks marvelous. We nearly tried to do interval. Oh, should we try and find her? And I would have said, my first thing would have been, A, I saw you live in the National Theatre in The Visit. You were marvelous. B, your talking heads was sublime. I love you. Have you been watching Succession, David?
I can't say that I have.
All I'll say is for anybody who does watch Succession and is listening, I would very easily enter into a Jerry Roman situation with Leslie Manville, but only as Cyril.
Oh
Um,
my God.
it's a great joke, David. It's a great joke.
I have to believe you on that.
And she seemed lovely, and yeah, and it was one of those things where I had to like it was so distracting. Well, not distracting, but it was like she's Leslie Manville. She's right there.
Leslie
Um,
Manville, a woman who lives up to the hype.
she does. She does.
Brothers.
Um, let's touch on best 10 minute stretch then. I've got here the country, including the breakfast.
Yep.
I love some Welsh rabbits and the poached egg. I hate how out of order he does everything when he orders his food. Even the morning after they have sex, and he's like in a good mood and he's louder and less a little bit more raucous at breakfast. And by a little bit more raucous, I mean he stood up. He's always like, have you got cream? Yes, I'll have the porridge and the cream. And then she's like ready to leave. And then he goes, and bacon and eggs. That's a whole different, you can't just throw a full, anyway.
I think that was the whole thing for him, Tom. Will you stand here long enough to listen to me give you my entire ridiculous breakfast order? And then not only that, but allow me to steal your handwriting and make you remember it all as you go back to the kitchen.
Are you going to remember this? Yes, I will. I'm keeping this. Absolutely great.
You
Welsh
have no.
rabbits and bacon. Scones. Do you have scones?
I have to say, one of my favorite arcs, I think, was Cyril's because
Mm.
what I was expecting from her, I guess, having gone into this doing no prior research, as you know me, and
Mhm.
knowing nothing, I fully expected the arc to be psychosexual connection to his sister,
Mm.
um, and she drives away all of his partners, and works to sabotage them essentially. But no, it turns out she's actually just a very caring sister, who knows how her brother works and ends up
Yeah.
like all know.
I think it's a film of constant subversion. You do think it's going to be this quite basic movie about, a dominating guy who brings in these women and then throws them aside as quickly. And you think, you're like, okay, so he's a great director, he's a great writer. It's not going to be that simple. She's going to be the one who changes him, but she's only going to change him because they actually fall in love. And you're like, okay, sure. Not that she's as messed up as he is. Like you say with the Cyril thing, you think it's going to be something like that. Or like I do there's a great turn. Now, another one of the big influences on the movie is Rebecca. And I don't know how much you know Rebecca, but Cyril sort of does figure in this as a Mrs. Danvers character. And she is this housekeeper who is haunting over the new wife of this Maxim doing to this rich person who is very similar to Reynolds. And there is the best scene in Rebecca in the book, in any adaptation, is Mrs. Danvers at the New Year's Eve party setting the wife up for failure. Now, this film has a very similar setup with this surprise party that she throws for his birthday.
Yes.
And you think when you watch it, it's going to be that. Like she comes to him, I've had this marvelous idea, and you think that Cyril is going to fuck her over, be Mrs. Danvers, and say, "Oh yes, Reynolds will love that.
Yeah.
That what a great idea." But she doesn't. You're completely
No,
right.
she gives
She
her
doesn't.
honest advice.
It's like he's not going to like that. And you think now at the time on first watch and even this time on a rewatch, forgetting little things, you think, is this double bluff? Is this something that Reynolds will like? And Cyril's, trying to mess over, you wonderful dynamics.
Yeah, it never becomes easy to predict at any point. That's for
No,
sure.
it's a great. Well, let's
And I love
continue. Oh, sorry.
I love some of Cyril's lines where kind of the way that both her and her brother communicate,
Mm,
where they'll say something and someone responds in sort of shock or like, well, of course that won't work. And they say, let me rephrase. You will be doing this in
Yeah.
this. Like when she comes in, she says, ladies, I'm afraid, how long will it take for you to have the dress ready? Well, the dress isn't going to be damaged. It's a lot of work. Let me rephrase. It will be ready by 9 a.m.
It'll be ready by 9 a.m. but it's going to Belgium. And she repeats it, even though everybody can hear. She goes to every
She
single
goes to
table.
every person.
Must be done by 9 a.m. in Belgium. Must be done at 9 a.m. by Belgium. Um, and another thing, I don't know what else you've seen Leslie Manville in, if anything, but she's another one of these chameleon-like actresses. I mean, such variety in her roles through the years. And I think she was on another job. I've heard this fact, and I can't remember the exact amount, but like Daniel Day-Lewis took approximately 3 years to mold Reynolds and obviously became.
Yeah, he took like a
Yeah.
year's worth of dressmaking lessons from a designer. I mean, Jesus,
Yeah.
I wish I could. Everybody can be method when you got cash.
Well, again, I think I said this on the There Will Be Blood episode. I made a joke in the radio play about the method actor character, and it was like, actually, I don't know if he was a good actor. He just took 3 years every time and just became the person.
Well, that's the thing. I do
Yeah.
find method acting does lead to some brilliant performances. I think it is exclusively something that is only really available to you once you're a rich person
Oh
who
yeah, yeah.
can sustain months or years at a time of living off grid doing something
Well,
ridiculous.
they're living off that Miller money, aren't they? His wife
Eh,
Rebecca Miller. They got that Miller money. Have you ever watched his Crucible
I have
with
not
Winona
actually.
Ryder? It's pretty good.
No.
Pretty good film. And what was I going to say? Oh yeah, no, he took 3 years or so, and Leslie Manville took like a month, 3 weeks to like such a short time because she was in between jobs.
Oh,
David. Oh,
can you hear me there? Sorry.
I
Yes,
can hear you. It's all right, Des. I thought you'd left me.
I thought so too for a moment.
Two more nominations for best 10-minute stretch before we take a short break. The Barbara Rose whole palaver with the drunkard woman marrying the Dominican.
Oh God, yeah. Just oh.
Please stop touching the dress. Please stop touching the dress.
She doesn't deserve it. It's your work.
Yeah. Not stop blubbering. Stop. I'm not. I'm angry. I'm angry. The wonderful
I
Harriet.
think was our first hint that she's just as crazy as he is.
Oh yeah.
Is the moment that she decides to fully go into the apartment and take the dress off of this woman.
Yeah.
We realize, she's gonna be with him, not because like she's obsessed with him, but because she's just as nuts as he is.
Yeah. It's great. It's wonderful stuff. And then I've got another ending, of course. I mean, and what is going to turn him on any more than that could ever? It's such a hilarious. Oh no! I'm confusing two different scenes. But when they kiss and he's got the dress thrown over his shoulder and they kiss on the way through the London street. I mean, it's just such a great little section.
It's all he could ever want.
And then the first poisoning and the remaking of the wedding dress and that sort of whole segment. And again, that thing of, is the film ending? Is this the twist? Is Daniel Day-Lewis not going to be in the rest of the film? Is he going to die? What's happening? And just that wonderful pivot, then the whole film sets you on a complete
new course,
feeling of unease, feeling of great discomfort. Just incredible.
That whole dinner scene with the doctor was wildly uncomfortable. Oh my goodness. She hasn't looked at you all night, has she?
Yeah. And then the wonderful Julia Day is such a great actress who's really big in England, David. And she's in this for like what?
Yeah,
one scene, and she's
yeah.
She's barely looked at you this evening, has she? And then she's got like, okay, Julia, we're gonna give you another scene. Okay, what are you gonna do? Oh, just be racist.
Just be racist.
Yeah. What customs does she have?
Everybody that's not English.
Well, this is the great thing. I mean, it's so much about that posh, upper class world of rules and regiments of British culture through something as specific and regimented as the world of haute
And
couture fashion.
one of his first movies to film mostly outside of the US, if I'm right. Is that true?
Completely, and only. Yeah, and only because Inherent Vice, which we're going to look at next, is fully LA, and Licorice Pizza after that is San Fernando Valley. You know, it's not really, and then it's movies like this that make you go, "Oh, I wish you did more." It's that great, you know. It's like David Fincher. You know, I could watch David Fincher do crime thrillers for the rest of my life. Is The Social Network one of his greater masterpieces? Yes. This, I know you disagree, but you know, there is a part of me that could watch LA, cokey, wacky Paul Thomas Anderson movies for the rest of my life. Is there a part of me that wants him to try
another one of these?
Yeah.
No,
it's one of the,
I say it's, you know, I didn't like it as much as the others, but by no means is this a bad film. It's excellent. Yeah.
It's very good. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to be back with everybody's favorite segments. Tom's weirdly specific favorite part of the film. Back. We are back. Okay, Tom's weirdly specific favorite parts of the corner. Okay. Morning ablutions. Morning ablutions, just him shaving and trimming himself and grooming himself. Morning Biddy, morning Nana, morning Pippa. The fact that he knows everybody's names and that they're all these old Yorkshire women.
As if he would trust anyone except someone he knew personally to sew his dresses.
True. Morning, my old so-and-so. My Reynolds Woodcock is almost leaning into James Mason, which we need to deal with.
It's not quite a English accent, is it? I was listening, and I mean, I don't know. Either it's a type of English accent that's too fancy for me to have ever heard, or he just sounded European to me. I'm not sure. Might have just been Daniel Day-Lewis being Daniel Day-Lewis as well.
There's slight affectations. Our nanny, the evil Mrs. Blackwood. All the wedding dress superstitions. I find very, very interesting, and also that great thing of well, the nanny, and did she get married? No, she never got married. Why would anybody? You know, it was Cyril who helped me in the end. And did Cyril get married? No. And it's that thing of, it's not even crossed his mind that maybe these superstitions are true, and maybe that's why Cyril isn't married and all that. You know, it's great, lovely little stuff. Ciril's arrival in Whitby. And
yes, the way she just fully walks into the room. Yes, oh my goodness. And what a way that we see kind of Alma's demeanor shift over the course of the film from that moment. I will the fashion show where Alma looks through the peephole and knows that he's watching her while she's doing her turn. Fantastic sequence.
It's glorious stuff.
And then the way he just kind of breaks on that one woman. You're no use to me standing there, Pippa. Just go.
Yeah, just leave. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. And then early in Robin Hood's Bay, in the seaside sequence, when they're up in the attic, first kind of glimpse of Alma's true nature. You know, stand normally. I am standing. Or stand straight. Oh, straight. Okay, you didn't say that. And just those little smiles that they share, you go, okay, this is going to be different.
Yes, he likes that she's challenging him. She doesn't just roll over.
We get that thing of, okay, is this something that he's going to drill out of her? Was this Joanna? Were the other women of a nature that he drilled out of them? Or does he, is this different?
He responds to, yeah.
23, 22, you have no breasts. 32, 33. Yes.
No, you're perfect. It's my job to give you breasts.
Yeah, it's marvelous.
I choose to.
Cyril is right. Cyril is always right.
Always right.
When they're flirting at dinner, and she's like, you look thirsty," and then like an absolute comedy slapstick cut to him speeding through the city of London.
That was the thing. There was an interesting cut. I do love the speeding through the city of London. The way We also, I think, get hints of her true nature the first time they're driving together because he always drives like a maniac, and she
Mm.
always seems to be into it from the very
Yeah.
beginning.
No,
Um,
yeah, good point.
but there was a strange cut in the middle of their first dinner conversation when he first begins talking about his mother and how he sews
Mm,
things into garments that no one else can see. And
mm.
it was a very strange, like I noticed it because it cut directly from Daniel Day-Lewis like leaning forward and laughing about something he had just said. Smash cut to him leaning back in the middle of speaking about his mother.
Yeah.
Um, and I just thought it was a little jarring, and I didn't see it happen anywhere else. It made me wonder, like,
Yeah.
if it was what the intention was,
Maybe a
if
deleted
there
scene or
wasn't.
something like that. Yeah. At the first fashion show, Alma putting back on the red lipstick that he said he didn't like,
Ah,
and
yes.
and showing it off again. Those little things. Um, just a little moment when they go and collect the dress from Barbara Rose. She's sleeping. Well, what's that got to do with the dress? Go and get the dress. Oh, she's sleeping in the dress. Just again, full comedy. And then when the sun walks through, evening, Mr. Woodcock,
Alma?
Cal, you know,
Cal.
and oh, when she throws the surprise party and is, where's Cyril? Yes, where is Cyril? And and then okay, I'm going to have my bath now.
Kind of surprised by how gallant I'm actually being.
Mm. It's like a horror movie when she puts when you look at the asparagus and see that they've clearly been buttered. You go, oh no,
Oh
oh,
God, not the butter.
not the butter on the asparagus. He makes martinis the same way I do. Um, Cyril's face when the doctor calls her Mrs. Woodcock, just brilliant. Um, her,
Yes, that
yeah,
whole sequence with the doctor, brilliant, where they are both
yeah.
just constantly saying the same thing, talking right over each other, and you just
Thank you,
kind of,
Mrs. Woodcock.
you're welcome.
And then yeah, her finding the never cursed thing in the wedding dress, and the person I was watching it with, they gasped as if it was going to be this horrid reveal of like I don't know, finding
That
another
was what
woman's
kind of
name
what
or
I was
something.
expecting, something like kind of
And in
dark.
and no, it's just he is an avid believer of all of these superstitions, and maybe this will do something.
Maybe this will
Um,
help.
yeah. I love his proposal of marriage, and that line. I had thought my days were unlimited, and
Yes, yes.
he's obviously a megalomaniac and all that sort of thing. But that sort of these megalomaniacs who fear, who believe that they're immortal, and then that first knock, like the way that Cyril reacts late earlier when we find out that he's when they come and say that he's ill. Mr. Woodcock's fallen on the dress, ma'am,
Yes,
and she just
yes.
reacts three different times of yes, but who's ill? Like the idea never
Fun
crosses his
things.
mind. Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that this could happen has just never been like
Mm.
something they even consider.
Like again, you've seen me on the 1 week a year I'm ill, and like is the rest of the
It's
time.
what a horrendous week it is.
Mhm. Keep avoiding, yeah, avoid me. The slurping and crunching at the breakfast of their honeymoon in the Swiss Alps. And you're going, oh no, oh
Again.
no, it's starting again. The Swiss Alps in general, when they're playing the game that must be Yahtzee or backgammon, and you go, yes, yes, no, I think they're well and truly shaken now. The sort of
To the next,
twisted,
sure I will.
yeah,
More fun
probably,
than
yeah, be a lot more fun than playing with you. That he, that horrible irony that she's so loud normally, and he managed to make her silent, and it's that silence that puts her in the room without him noticing, or maybe he does notice and he doesn't care when when he's talking to Cyril
their
about
marriage.
getting rid of her. Yeah, you've cast a very long shadow over this house. Any other specific? Tinker's fucking curse.
um favorite specific moment, I guess it's more of a specific favorite line.
Mm.
But that whole sequence where he goes, because it hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
and I don't like to be turned away from. Nobody does, but I don't want to hear it because it hurts my ears.
It's brilliant.
Just fucking perfect.
It's great, great stuff. Moaning. When did you start moaning? And again, we get this impression that this is a state that Cyril hasn't seen him in a long time, if ever. When
Yeah.
did you start moaning? Like,
Yep.
you've never been a moaner. Sure, you've had your gripes, and I can stomach that. But when did you start moaning like a
Yeah.
child? Um,
Whining about things outside of your control.
yeah. Best building on set, the beautiful seaside, David, of Robin Hood's Bay in Whitby. Have you ever been up to
Yes,
Whitby, David?
not, but I'll certainly be going now.
It's beautiful, isn't it, David?
It
And
was
of
gorgeous.
course, the Haute Couture House of Woodcock itself.
Yes, very lovely shots of houses I'll never be able to afford.
Yes. Soundtrack corner, 90 minutes, David, of this 2 hour and 10 runtime is scored by Johnny Greenwood, who did the score for The Master, did the score for There Will Be Blood, did a piece of not incidental music, it's a beautiful piece of music that appears in Licorice Pizza near the end. Absolutely stunning, swelling, strings-based, beautiful, sumptuous score.
Yes, it was
Yeah.
gorgeous music. I was more focused on the performances, I'll be honest, but definitely suited the piece.
Beautiful piece of music. Best single minute. We've touched on a few of these already. The first loud breakfast, the fashion show. The would you like me to ask Alma to leave breakfast with Cyril? Oh, no, don't you dare! I'll go straight through you.
Yeah.
The ghost of the dead mother, and then Alma walking in and past her and all that sort of thing. Just a beautiful, haunting image.
Yeah.
The incredible New Year's Eve party. I mean, that must have been half the budget at least. And it's
Yeah. Oh my
beautiful and
goodness.
sumptuous and incredible.
I love the man who invited chaos into his life, shredding across the room to find the woman that he just can't leave behind.
And it's that the two polar opposites. This is exactly where she wants to be on New Year's Eve. This, I don't know, the pre-run for Brad Pitt's party at the start of Babylon, and then instead he wants to sit at home with the radio and he's just sketching.
Yeah.
And it's to an extent that you don't even realize that it's New Year's Eve, really, when she asks, do you want to go out dancing? It feels like it's just a normal Saturday evening or Sunday evening.
Yeah. When he says when.
when. And then the final making the omelette, which is the most erotic omelette scene in movie history, I dare say.
It is quite erotic.
And the longest.
That is when I wrote surprise twist, Mrs. Gray will see you now. Then she goes into her speech.
A new category that we have, and probably one of my favorites, is best specific Halloween costume. I've got drunk Barbara Rose. And I've
the
got
way she wiped her mouth with the
with the dress. Oh my god,
the dress
got me, annoyed me. And then his purple evening wear that he wears to the surprise party, which is half pajama, half he's kind of dressed up, and she's in this incredible red dress. Those are my two options. I don't know if you have any that jump to mind.
I think definitely go with the pajamas with the waistcoat hastily thrown over top.
I think it's a good choice. What's next? What should we do? Let's do what's the change. Now we've talked generally, David, about your opinion. Do you have any more specific things, or what?
I really couldn't say. I don't think, as usual, I can't necessarily think of anything that I would particularly change about it. I think it does sometimes tend to linger when maybe it could move on, but I think it's also done intentionally, and it's more of just a matter of my personal taste than whether or not it makes it effective, I guess. Yeah.
I've put here Chekhov's poisonous mushroom. Is it like it's got to be in there, but like when she's asking the nanny or the housekeeper of the country house, which ones are poisonous? Oh, the ones with the gills and all that sort of thing.
It did seem to come a little out of nowhere, just a bit. I was like, what? I kind of had a moment of why is she out picking the mushrooms.
Yeah.
That's never been a thing he wanted
Prior
from
to
her.
this, yeah. Prior to this.
It seemed like she was just kind of there. But
Mm.
you know, hey, she can make her interest. Maybe she wanted to go mushroom picking.
New category. What did Tom's lady friend say whilst she watched? She got very excited when there was a puppy, and then she went, "Oh, two puppies." That's a very you thing to say.
Oh, that's a very you thing to say.
She said, "That's just you." When he doesn't want to take the photos at the photo shoot. Am I done? Is this done yet? When he's depressed and laid on his bed. Yeah, please be done with this now. After the fashion show, when he's depressed on his bed, she says that that's me after I do a play before the next one.
He needs to come down.
Mm-hmm. Me holding her clutch during the Barbara Rose scene, very similar. The day when I was sick. This is a comment. She really did not like the wedding dress of Alma. Her exact quote was, "That's the dress. Are you having a laugh? That's the wedding dress. This is the most disappointing part of the film."
That's an awfully strong opinion of the wedding dress.
And then, I thought it was quite nice. I thought it was lovely.
Yeah.
Yes. And then 3 final comments from the final 10 minutes. Get rid of him. Come on, Alma. Once and for all this time. See him off. They have a baby now. And so every time he starts being an arsehole, she just poisons him. Great movie.
Pretty much, yeah. You know, they'll be in a lovely, codependent, toxic relationship and all the happier for it. The end.
The end. I'll just
It'll
never
only be written
eat
by a man.
I'll just never eat an omelette. She makes me.
It's not one with mushrooms.
I love mushrooms, David.
I do love mushrooms. It would be very easy to kill you with mushrooms.
It would be so easy to kill. It'd be so easy to kill me in general.
You haven't spent time preparing for this eventuality, Tom.
Yeah. I'm going to start very soon preparing myself. Other notes. Have you watched Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, David?
I can't say that I have.
Leslie Manville is Mrs. Harris. The amount of scenes that are incredibly similar to this, just the world of haute couture fashion and Leslie Manville at these. It was. I have here who would win in a fight between Isabelle Huppert and Leslie in Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris or Cyril, and it would be a very, very close battle. I liked Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. It was a lovely, lovely film. Best line. The tea is going out. The interruption is staying right here with me, which is Paul Thomas Anderson's favorite line in the film.
Oh, really?
I want you flat on your back, helpless, tender, open, with only me to help. And then I want you strong again. You're not going to die. You might wish you were going to die, but you're not going to. You need to settle down a little, which leads, of course, to kiss me, girl, before I'm sick.
Kiss me, my beautiful girl, before I'm sick.
What was your first reaction, David, when he said, kiss me, girl, before I'm sick?
I think by that point I had started to get a gist of like, okay, this is going to be their thing. And it felt quite clear. Whole dinner scene. So I think, yeah, it was but of course, but also you.
Marriage would make me deceitful, and I don't ever want that. So he's clearly been. I want to talk about this now. Let's talk about this now. He's clearly a bit of a dog, or at least a bachelor. Like
definitely a womanizing type. I think. Yeah.
I definitely think he's at least flirted, had sex maybe a few times with Julia Davis, the racist lady from New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Like Gina McKee at the start, the first lady who he dresses, like when we're introduced to the world, and she's like, I love the dress. And, it's so wonderful we've always been through. Like, what have
they been through? Yeah.
And, even Barbara is like acting a little bit like a scorned ex at times of like, oh, Reynolds, you must come to the wedding. You must. And it feels like, it's the least you can do after all. Again.
It did seem she was strangely desperate for him to be there. And the fact that she was on however many weddings it's been.
Boss.
something tells me that at some point, maybe when she was a little younger and a little more beautiful,
Mm.
there's something.
And he appealed to her vanity. Maybe the first wedding dress or something like that. Yeah. I cannot begin my day with a confrontation, please. I'm delivering the dress today, and I can't take up space with confrontation. I simply don't have time for confrontations. Now, my normal line is, I don't have the time, the patience, or the inclination to
And the
respond.
patience of the inclination.
How many times have you heard me say that, Dave?
I've heard it enough times. Fortunately, not generally directed in my direction.
Never once directed at you, David. You should be proud.
Huzzah! I'm working on it. One of these days.
You look beautiful, really, very beautiful. You're making me extremely hungry. Um,
You seem. Have you had enough to eat? You seem thirsty.
oh yes. What do you want to do about Joanna? She's lovely, but her time has come. She's getting fat, sitting around waiting for you to fall in love with her again. I'll give her the October dress. This is one of our first lines from Cyril, and you're like, oh, okay. This is what this is going to be.
Well, you see, that's what initially I thought. Okay, Cyril is the controlling sister.
Yeah.
That keeps him on task and lets him have his little distractions and then sees them on their way, sort of thing.
Wonderful Alma. It is no business what Miss Rose does in her own time, but she cannot behave like this and be dressed by the House of Woodcock.
The House of Woodcock.
Vicky Creeps, just so wonderful in this, and she's got on to being old.
To be, oh yes, she is an alt writer. Yes, I saw all of this. Quite the a feminist movie written by two women needs to be disregarded now because of the misbehavior of one man.
What are we talking about feminism for? I said she was in old.
Oh, old. I thought you said that she was alt, as in alt right. I don't think she is, but she was like contributing to the COVID scare in Germany, if that's what you mean, telling people not to get vaxxed.
Yeah, I think Vicky's fine. I didn't know any of this. I said she was in old.
Ah, I have no idea what that is, Tom.
M. Night Shyamalan's movie where they all grow old on a beach.
Oh, well, you see, that explains it. I hate M. Night Shyamalan with burning passion.
Oh, David.
I'll never forgive him for what he did to Avatar.
I know. Well, at least you've got 5 new avatars to make you
happy.
Yeah,
I've got plenty more new content coming out, but I'm sure I'll be equally disappointed.
My final quote. Chic. Oh, don't use that dirty, filthy little word with me. Chic. Who invented Chic. That word? Or to be spanked in public? I don't even know what that word means. What is that word? Fucking chic. They should be hung, drawn, and quartered. Fucking chic.
Made me think of his line after Backgammon, where he said, "I'm sure it seems quite stupid to you now, but were you winning, you wouldn't be feeling much differently about it." Smacks of that same confrontation.
If you're winning the game, then I'm sure you'd feel differently. Just great stuff. A few fun facts, David. The type of mushroom Alma uses to poison Reynolds is most likely a Ophthalmolatus alieris, commonly known as a jack-o'-lantern, often mistaken for chanterelle mushrooms. Whilst not deadly, jack-o'-lanterns do cause severe nausea and diarrhea.
Brilliant.
It is brilliant. It's wonderful. In preparation for the film, Daniel Day-Lewis watched archival footage of 1940s and 50s fashion shows, studied famous designers, consulted with the curator of fashion and textiles at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, and apprenticed under Mark Happel. And he is the head of the costume department for the New York City Ballet. He also learned to sew, and he practiced on his wife, Rebecca Miller, trying to recreate a Balenciaga sheath dress that was inspired by a school uniform.
And he was able to do it within a year, wasn't he?
Something like that. I mean, yeah. There is there is that turning point where he's doing Hamlet. Do you know the story, Dave, about why?
I do not.
So he was doing Hamlet.
Yes.
And it was this huge production of Hamlet at the National Theatre. And it was this big deal. And it was his return to stage, because he started on stage. My ex's mother saw him in Romeo and Juliet at like Doncaster, and it's one of her. She was like, "Oh yeah," and it was incredible. He started on stage, did a lot of stage, and in his earlier career, did a lot more films. He was doing at least one a year, two a year. He was still doing a lot of the method acting stuff, but he was doing it on a quicker schedule. And then he's in this production of Hamlet, and the story goes, and he's admitted it himself. He's done it in interviews. Is that he was preparing for the scene with what do you call it? Is seeing his dad's ghost, and backstage he saw his own father's ghost, and then he went into a full panic attack, couldn't go on with the show, and the understudy finished the run, and it was this huge deal, and then he's never worked on a stage again.
Oh,
and
wow.
there is that kind of. I always see it as a kind of turning point thing of, if that didn't happen, would there be more stage work in his life? Would there be a more, because Mark Rylance is as just a chameleonic, that's not a word, but you know what I mean, transformative, that's the word I mean, actor, and is in multiple films a year, is doing plays still. He's did Othello. He was supposed to do a run in Jerusalem. Unfortunately, his brother passed. He's going to be in another play at the end of this year, and he's still in like 2 films a year in small roles and big roles. I mean, so I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I'm even trying to say.
Yes, I suppose in a world where Daniel Day-Lewis didn't have a breakdown and see the ghost of his father backstage during Hamlet, there is a world where he does more stage, Tom.
Who directed it? I want to know. It's a famous person who directs. Daniel.
Fascinating anecdote in the shape of a question.
Daniel Michael Blake Day-Lewis.
Michael Blake Day-Lewis.
Early life and career. I want the ghost.
I'm surprised that just wasn't the moment where he decided that method acting was the way for him. Because I mean, what better way to play Hamlet encountering the ghost of his father than while having a full, breakdown while seeing.
I was going to say, you'd think he'd be happy. Yes. So David returned to the stage. Daniel Day-Lewis returned to the stage in 1989 to work with Richard Eyre, who, for the longest time, David, was the honorary scholar or whatever of Rose Bruford. I don't know what the term would be.
Yes, what an honorary something or other.
Yeah. I don't know what the term is. It doesn't say. Yeah. But during a performance, during the scene where the ghost of Hamlet's father before him, he began sobbing uncontrollably and refused to go back on stage, and was replaced by Jeremy Northam, the understudy, who gave a triumphant performance, according to Wikipedia. Ian Charleson, who was a famous actor, and died. I believe he was the one who died of AIDS complications. Or am I completely making this up? Yes, no, he did. He died. He died 8 weeks after performing in this production of Hamlet. Yeah, and
sounds like it was a rather cursed show.
Yeah, awful. Earlier in the run, Day-Lewis had talked of his demons and his weeks. He threw himself passionately into the role. He later explained, to some extent, I probably saw my father's ghost every night because, of course, if you're working in a play like Hamlet, you explore everything through your own experience. He has not worked on stage since, and has, from this point on, been famed for his privacy and all that sort of thing, which, is, of course, is his right. But I do see that as some sort of, a turning class.
That certainly seems like something that I mean, how does that not change you, I suppose?
Yeah. Okay, Tom's big questions. Cyril's arrival at Seaside on the second night, was that always planned, or did he call her after breakfast and say, I'm taking out this woman, I think she's marvelous, come tonight to the country house? Or was she always going to be coming on the second night?
I don't know when he would have made the call. I think she was always going to be coming on the second night. It seemed like it was almost scheduled down to the exact moment. He knew exactly when he was going to need to be upstairs doing the measurements so that when Cyril walked in, she would be able to start writing them down. And he seems like someone who's pedantic enough to time. Yeah, no wonder you admire him. His timetabling must be immaculate.
David, my timetabling has been so ruined. It's both wonderful and unsettling. Did she
Easier.
mean to kill him the first time?
I don't think so. I think she meant to scare him
Yeah,
or maybe get one in on him and maybe scared herself a little bit with how effective it was. I mean, she didn't seem panicked at all.
yeah. Well, I love. Well, she has the book. She has this book on poisonous mushrooms. So there
Yeah,
must she
there
if
must be
the,
information in it. Yeah.
yeah. And then the most important question we've ever asked on Carruthers, Leggetter Whoever. Was the asparagus the main course? And if it wasn't, and if it was the starter, which surely it should be, what was the main course?
Welsh rabbit.
Welsh rabbit. I I've always wondered this. Surely the asparagus is the starter. Like, there's no way around that. It has to be a starter. For God's sake, don't cook him. You
Just
know,
make a plate of asparagus.
yeah. It has to be the starter. But what is she then cooking for me? And also, when she says, I've prepared dinner, and then he goes for a bath, has she literally prepared dinner for him to walk in and it's ready to cook? Sorry, ready to serve?
Mm.
Bad planning, Alma. At the end of the day, I think it's
Yeah, I
Alma's
gotta
fault.
say, maybe that wasn't quite thought through.
Mm.
Maybe you've cracked the code.
What I'm trying to say is that Paul Thomas Anderson is an overrated filmmaker. And
And I hope he dies. No.
yeah. So in release schedule, David, we've done Inherent Vice and people know what you think. In reality, we haven't watched Inherent Vice. So currently, Hard Eight, Boogie Nights, Magnolia, Punch Drunk Love, There'll Be Blood, The Master, Phantom Thread. What are your feelings, David?
Well, oh, having seen Licorice Pizza, and that's the only one that I know of the ones that are coming up next. With everything we've watched, I'd say The Master and There Will Be Blood still stick out for me as favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Punch Drunk Love as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really enjoyed that one. It was a nice change of pace from the others. And Boogie Nights. Boogie Nights was up there as a surprise for me.
Great film.
Yeah, it
Is
was a
this for the
great film.
Christmas? What's a better extended Christmas 10 minutes in a Paul Thomas Anderson movie? Is it the darkest Christmas sequence of all time in Boogie Nights? Or is it this nice little winter in the Alps?
I
Is
do
it
feel
Mark
like
Wahlberg jerking off in a car park and getting beaten up to the sound of Silent Night, Holy Night? Or is it a backgammon game that ends in a little dry
the back
outburst?
the backgammon game didn't quite make me want to put a bullet through my head as much
Yeah,
as the other one did. I'll be
yeah,
honest.
that is true.
Because
That is true.
I knew it was all part of the dance. You know, she was getting off on it just as much as he was.
Wonderful.
And that's
Enjoy your game.
that's the game they play.
Cast Daniel Day Lewis in Boogie Nights.
Mark Wahlberg's character.
Brilliant. Imagine the lengths of method acting you'd have to go to prepare for that role.
I wonder who he would have apprenticed under.
Under being the operative word. Oh, David. It's wonderful stuff. Okay, David. Right. Well, that's Phantom Thread. So
I've got
we've
to
got.
say, it was the best sequel to Devil Wears Prada I never knew I needed.
This should be a twisted double bill that people watch with Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. I think I said this shit during my Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris review. This can be the last thing we do. Mrs. Harris. Yeah, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. What a lovely little film.
Double bill it with this and confuse your family and friends.
Yeah, I gave it 6 out of 10. Whether intentional or not, this may be the most bizarre and yet perfect double bill with Phantom Thread. Huppert is effectively playing the same role as Manville played in Thread. The setting inside the House of Dior looks almost identical in regards to the decor and design to the House of Woodcock. Now, of course, it would be a pairing of two vastly different natures, but still a nice double bill if you like clashing genres.
Very nicely put.
Well, thank you,
You
David.
you should write.
I should. Yes, here we are. Well, David, go watch Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris.
All right, I'll get right on that, Tom. Thank you very much, mate.
Yes, go to the Motive in the Queue at the National Theatre. Maybe she enjoyed it so much she goes again.
I'll let her know you said hello.
A play about Hamlet without just don't take Daniel. Daniel, darling, I'm in London. Do you want to go see a play at the National Theatre? No, please. Right, wait a minute. Does Paul Thomas Anderson know this story? Because why on earth would he make a scene where he's got to look at a ghost of a family member?
Don't forget, Daniel Day-Lewis should have a co-writing credit. So who truly wrote that scene?
Oh, David, this is really good.
This
is like this is almost as good as you saying that he turns his son away and there will be blood once he turns deaf and he can't control him with his words. That is the I could be on my deathbed, David, and you could have told me that you loved me and you've been a good friend for all of our lives. And I will still remember that as the most impactful thing you've ever put upon me.
I'm glad to impress. Every now and then I get a good one.
Good one in. Right, David, love you, and we will talk soon, and we'll be talking about, in the future, Licorice Pizza. In 2 days, Inherent Vice. And Inherent Vice, David, spoiler alerts, is my least favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
So that means I'm probably going to love it.
I don't know. Everybody will know.
We don't have quite opposite tastes. I think sometimes we just clash in interesting and strange ways.
Just like the House of Woodcock.
Just
David.
like the House of Woodcock.
Okay. David, see you later.
Good night, bud.
Dabba 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 da da ba 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 ba